welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into the world of rhetoric,
Yeah.
and not just like speeches and stuff, but like the
Right.
real deal. How language shapes what we do every day.
It's everywhere.
It really is.
Yeah.
And to help us, we're looking at Kenneth Burke's A Rhetoric of Motives.
Yes. Such a good one. A classic.
I mean, it's kind of the book on persuasion, right?
It's up there. Definitely a must read if you really want to get this stuff.
Which is why we need you here. This gets pretty dense.
Well, that's the fun of it, right?
Yeah.
Digging in. And what I love about Burke is how much what he was saying, decades ago
Mhm.
still applies now, even with like the internet and
Yeah.
all these opinions flying around.
It's like one of the first things that jumps out is he's like, scrap the textbook definition of rhetoric.
Exactly.
It's not just about, writing a good speech or something.
Nope, it's way bigger. Like Burke is all about this idea of choice. That persuasion, real persuasion, can
Yeah.
only happen if someone could have done something else. It's like we have to have that option.
So it's not about forcing someone into a corner.
Not at all. Think about a time that you were persuaded to do something you weren't so sure about at first.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe a friend convinced you to try a new restaurant.
Oh, yeah?
You could have stayed home. But they painted this picture, right, of the food, the
The
vibe,
ambiance, yeah.
and it swayed you. That's persuasion.
That is a good point. It's like it's appealing to, I don't know, your desires rather than
Yeah.
just being like, logically, you should do this.
Yes. It's not just logic bombs. You're appealing to something deeper.
Totally.
And this leads right into how Burke looks at, the OG rhetorician, Aristotle.
Right.
It's
Right.
almost like Burke's a fan, but he's also got, like, notes scribbled in the margins.
Oh, I love that. Notes in the margins. So give it to us straight. How does Burke see Aristotle's take on all this?
Okay, so Aristotle, brilliant, right? Broke down rhetoric into all those categories.
Mhm.
Logos, ethos, pathos, all that.
Yeah. Yeah. Helpful stuff.
Incredibly helpful. But, and this is Burke's little but, he felt like Aristotle missed, maybe, some of the magic.
Okay.
The way that rhetoric isn't just these categories, it's how it gets woven into everything we do.
There's that quote, right?
Yeah,
About it not just being about speeches.
you got it. Burke said, Aristotle's art of rhetoric includes much that falls under the separate headings of psychology, ethics, politics,
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
poetics, logic, and history. He goes on.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
But it makes sense, right? We see persuasion everywhere, not just
Everywhere.
in how we talk to our partners, our kids, our bosses, right?
Yeah.
It's the hidden language of us.
Fascinating.
And this is where Burke brings in another giant of thought. Plato. Or, well, more like Plato's student. Socrates, the king of questions.
Socrates, yeah. It's like comparing a symphony to like a freestyle rap battle, right?
Oh, I like that.
Aristotle with his system and Socrates just like
Verbal sparring.
verbal sparring, yes. And Burke uses them to show us there are different ways to use language to get people thinking.
Yeah.
Socrates was all about the Socratic method, that relentless questioning.
Yeah.
Where someone picks apart your argument until you're like, wait, what do I even believe anymore?
Oh, I've been there. It's intense. But does it actually change your mind or just make you feel like stuck?
That is the question, isn't it? And it's one of the things Burke wrestles with. He clearly admires how smart it is, but he also wonders, is this really how persuasion works out in the real world?
So if Socrates isn't the gold standard, what is?
Well,
Because Burke, he throws us another curveball when he starts talking about truth.
ooh, yeah.
Or should I say the question of truth?
This is where it gets good.
It does.
Think about it. How many times have you actually, changed your entire viewpoint because someone just poked holes in your argument?
Yeah.
It feels like a lot of times it's more about
Winning.
winning, exactly, not about actually getting somewhere.
Yeah. It's like that saying, you can't reason someone out of a position they didn't reason themselves into.
Right.
Or something
Well,
like that.
what's the point?
Exactly. So if Socrates isn't the big winner here, then what is? Because Burke, he goes on and he brings up this whole thing about truth.
Okay. Yeah.
Or I guess, like you said, maybe the question of truth.
Yeah. Yeah. When it comes to rhetoric, this is where Burke gets really interesting. He says, and I'm going to quote him directly here, the kind of opinion persuasion relies upon falls outside the test of truth.
Hold on. Wait. Back up. Is he saying facts don't matter?
Okay.
Is that what he's saying?
It's not that truth doesn't matter, but it's not the whole story. Okay, think of it like this. A politician is giving a speech. They're praising a local hero, right? some firefighter who, I don't know, rescued a cat from a tree,
Okay.
the crowd goes wild. But objectively, like,
It's not exactly,
it's not exactly saving children from a burning building.
right. It's not, yeah, okay, I see where you're going.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's more about the story.
Yeah.
Look
Look
out
how.
now.
Those values we all connect to, even if the facts are a little.
A little fuzzy. Yes,
that?
exactly. The politician isn't just praising the firefighter. They're tapping into the audience's values, right?
Compassion.
Courage, compassion, community. Those things run deep, even if that specific event was, not the craziest thing ever.
So it's less about the truth of what the firefighter did and more about the truth of what it represents to all of us watching.
Now you're getting it. Burke would be proud. He's saying that in rhetoric, those shared values, those beliefs, what he calls opinions, that's the real engine driving things. It's where persuasion actually, takes root.
See, now this is getting really interesting. So tell me more about this whole, opinion is the basis of persuasion thing. How does this play out?
Well, just think about advertising. Think about how rarely commercials ever give you hard facts.
Oh, yeah.
It's all about selling you a feeling, a vibe.
Right.
Maybe like a sense of belonging, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you buy this, then you'll be part of the group. Right, or like that you need this thing even if you've lived your whole life without it.
Totally. No one needs a car that goes that fast. But the ad makes you feel like you'd be cooler, more confident, more free if you had it.
Yeah, exactly. They're not just selling you the thing, they're selling you a better version of yourself.
100%. And they do that by appealing to what you already want, to those existing opinions about what's good, what's cool, what's worth having.
Which, okay, I had to say, this is all starting to make rhetoric sound a little sneaky. Like, is it all just manipulation? Smoke and mirrors.
See, that's the thing. Burke was adamant that it wasn't about being tricky or hiding the truth. He was more interested in the how than the what. Like, he wanted us to get why we make the choices we do.
So, not about condemning persuasion, but more about understanding it.
Yes. It's about being aware of the persuasive forces that we encounter every single day. The ads, the news, even just chatting with your family,
It's true.
Because when we understand how it works, then we can use it more consciously, maybe even ethically.
So less about rhetoric as manipulation, more about rhetoric as connection, even.
Exactly. And that brings us to what I think is one of the most mind-blowing parts of Burke's work.
Okay.
He says we should view persuasive arguments less like a battle to be won and more like an experiment.
Experiments. Okay, now you have to explain this one.
All right. Well, if we take this idea of an opinion as kind of like a hypothesis,
Okay.
something that hasn't been fully tested yet, then having these conversations, these debates, it's a way of exploring that hypothesis, seeing how it holds up when it bumps up against other ideas.
So instead of trying to win an argument, it's more about having a back and forth that actually helps everyone involved kind of understand each other better.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what leads us to.
And that leads us to, I think, one of the most practical things Burke gives us, this whole opinion is hypothesis idea.
It really is.
Because it totally changes how you think about arguments,
Totally. It takes the pressure off, Like, you don't have to be right all the time. It's more about, exploring.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how do we actually use this idea of rhetoric as an experiment out in the wild? What would that look like?
Okay, let's say you and a friend, you're, I don't know, debating the merits of pineapple on pizza.
The age-old debate.
Right. Strong opinions on both sides.
Yeah.
But instead of, digging in, trying to win,
Yeah.
you could come at it from this place of I wonder why you feel so strongly about this.
Right. So instead of a pineapple pizza-fueled brawl, it's...
Exactly. It's like you're both researchers or something,
Okay.
gathering data, testing out these hypotheses. Maybe you even change your mind a little along the way.
I love that. So it's not just about what we believe, but how we got there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how open we are to, having those beliefs challenged a little.
Exactly. To having our minds changed.
Which I think that's what makes Burke so relevant. He reminds us that rhetoric isn't just some dusty old thing. It's happening right now, all around us.
It's like this secret language we've been speaking forever.
Yeah.
But now we're actually starting to understand the rules.
Exactly.
So any parting words of wisdom for our listeners out there as they go forth into the world, armed with their rhetorical decoder rings?
I'd say stay curious. The next time you see an ad or you're scrolling online, even just having a conversation, take a second, unpack it a little. What's the message, really? What are they appealing to in me? And then, how does it make me feel? Because once you start paying attention, it's amazing what you'll notice.
You know what? I think Burke would like that. Be curious, be critical, and hey, maybe even be open to changing your mind once in a while.
I'll second that.
Well, that about wraps up this deep dive into the wild world of rhetoric. Until next time, everyone, happy persuading.